All right?
Yeah.
I started at ARMCO January the 9th, 1925, and I hired in as messenger boy. And I asked for the job as messenger boy due to my size and brain. Undersized and no brain. I shouldn't say that, but I always said it. So they had a training department there. And for some cause or other, I don't know why, but I took up the training department. I went to school for them. I took primary metallurgy, advanced metallurgy, chemistry, blueprint reading, economics, and several other courses. And anyhow, they said it amounted to about 2 years engineering. And ARMCO, I asked for the job of, I wanted to get out in the mail because my buddies knew I was working out in the mail, and they was getting more pay, higher pay than I was. I was working on salary. And so they offered me a job in the order and schedule department. Due to I had bookkeeping, a couple of years of bookkeeping, typewriting too. And I turned it down. I didn't want that. It wasn't enough. I wanted to get out in the mail. So they gave me a job, assistant chemist. I worked in the research department, put me in the research department. And I worked there, I made a year and a half, something like that. And the guy ahead of me was leaving. And there was only 2 high school boys in there, Paul Ramsire and myself. And naturally they had to have a college man. And so I wanted that job. Joe Butterfield was my superintendent. And I wanted that job, and he said no. He said, you haven't got enough experience, you haven't been here long enough, no, yak. And I told him, I was cocky, I guess. I said I didn't want to wait 20 years, any place, for an advancement. Therefore, I wanted that job, that's all. He said, well, you think over it. Think over it for a month, or think over it for so many weeks. And when at that time, he came around and said, all right, what do you think? Same thing. I wasn't going to wait, because they brought an outside college man in as a chemist. See, in chemistry down there, if you can read cc or grams or run the balances and stuff, I don't know what they call them today, to weigh the, you don't have to know anything if you can read. So therefore, if you had a basic chemistry, you have to do what they say. Like baking a cake, you have to bake what they say, do what they say. You don't experiment yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Just follow instructions is all it is.
So Mr. Holstein, I was quite talkative, as you know, and I talked to all the guys, superintendents, janitors, anybody. And Mr. Holstein came in one day and he says, come over to my department, Lawrence. And I says, okay. So they made the transfer. I left the research department, went over there as tally clerk in the old bar mill. And at that time, it was called the Blooming Bar and Strip. They rolled ingots down to a thin bar, about a ½ inch thick and about 8 inches wide. These slabs were cut up in lengths, taken to the sheet mill, and they were rolled by hand, flatways, right through the sheet mill and got on the other side. That's when men were men, great big giants. But that's what they made. Well, I wasn't there hardly no time at all till John Titus, he was a steelmaker's son, that he got the idea we can roll steel like paper. He knew the paper mill from ending to end. Bethlehem Steel, United Steel, big steel company says impossible. Can't be done. Steel won't stay hot that long. It'll break your mills down. It's impossible. ARMCO says we'll try. So they built the first continuous mill, tiny mill, in Ashland, Kentucky. That picture of it. They put a fence around it like nobody in, and they experimented. A little mill. And they found the little things out about it. Then they come up to Middletown, and I happened to be in the right department. And they built the first continuous mill was ever built in the world. And they had guards around, police around. No one was allowed in there except the guys that worked there, because there was a lot of things there wasn't patented.
Oh,
They didn't
yeah.
have no patent on it. They could steal it. And they had the best engineers, but they broke a lot of things down. I mean, a lot of machinery down. The first roll that they broke in that mill is what they call a four-high mill, 4 rolls high. 2 great big rolls on top of 2 smaller rolls, what they call the working rolls. And they broke the number 7 mill, another welfare gun. The daggone broke right in the middle, a big roll. And there was no steel touched it at all, but it was due to the working rolls going through, and the play in the working rolls, the rolls bent up. And the backing up roll, that was the big backing up roll, was 30-some inches thick.
Yeah.
And the working rolls were 18 inches thick. And it broke that big roll just like it cut it with a knife. And that's where I learned a whole lot about rolling a steel. I didn't realize that.
That was when they were experimenting. They were learning how to do it.
That's right. It was experimenting. Then another thing they found out, in running this steel through a mill, they find out that the working rolls has to be set just a little bit ahead. You'd think 4 rolls high, a big roll on the top, big roll on the bottom, 2 working rolls in the middle. You'd think they have to be perpendicular. They don't. They have to have the working rolls just a little bit ahead. If they're perpendicular, the rolls will come out the back, slide out the back. They have just a little bit ahead, so the backing up rolls will back them up.
Yeah, that's right.
Hold it down so it keeps from bending.
Yeah.
And now we rolled steel. Found out another thing that they found out in this process is controlled grain steel. Get that in metallurgy. They have to roll the steel at a certain temperature, and if they roll it above a certain temperature, the grains will be elongated and they won't be uniform. If they roll it below a certain temperature, it'll be the same way. They have to roll it just at around 1400 through the finishing mill. That way, the grains of steel are all like grains of sand. They're uniform. They're exact. And that will stand drawing. Draw out a fender, a tub, stuff like that. It'll stand it. But if the steel's not rolled at the right temperature, if they go to put it under a big die and go to draw a sheet out to a tub or something, it'll break, crack all around the edge if it's not rolled at the right temperature. So they had controlled grain. ARMCO got that.
All that was perfected by ARMCO.
Yes, sir. And another thing, they kept the franchise on the continuous mill as long as they could. I think 6 years, 5 or 6 years, something like that. Then, as the law says, that they have to divide up, they have to give it up. Now, U.S. Steel, Bethlehem Steel, all the steels, Carnegie Steel, all of them has got it now. Now we roll steel with a skeleton crew, I call it.
Yeah.
Only about 17 men in the whole sheet mill. It's just shocking. Hey, one of these days I'll take you down there and show you that.
Is it all automated now?
Yes, it's now the guy that did my job. See, I did mine by. Oh, another thing. I will tell you this. I was small, and I knew it. And I know the big guys gets a break, and I know that, and nobody tells me the difference. A little guy has to prove himself. A big guy don't have to prove himself as much. So when I ask for a job, you're like, you're too low, you're too good. So I'm cocky, I can do it. So one day, I didn't get the line of promotion that I should have. And it wasn't, they're going to get somebody else. And I said, I want that job, and I'm entitled to it. And I can do the job. So they wouldn't let me, wasn't going to let me have it. So I called up one of the vice presidents or works manager. He was vice president in charge of personnel. That's his title. Over the main office. I was inspector in our department, inspecting the sheets and anything. And had a little office down in the basement and made out a record all the time, every day. And this is the biggest point in my life, I do believe, is I was quality checker, that's the title of the job. And 10 o'clock in the morning, I called up Mr. Murray's office, Charlie Murray's office. We'll talk to Mr. Murray. Who's calling? Larry Martin, Eastworks. That's what they call me, Larry Martin. So, well, he's having a meeting today. Can't see you. All the time, the guys in the plant, Superintendent, you can't do that, Larry. You're going to get no place. You're going to no place. And even the pacifier come around numerous times. Don't do that. Don't do that. You can't get no place. You can't do that. And I said, well, I'm going to find out or die, one of the other things. So the next day at the same time, I call up Mr. Murray's office. I'll talk to Mr. Murray. Says, who's calling? Larry Martin, Eastworks. Mr. Murray's out of town today. The next day, at the same daggone time, I called up again. I'll talk to Mr. Murray. Mr. Murray's out of town, or Mr. Murray's having a meeting. Mr. Murray can't see you. Who's calling? Larry Martin, Eastworks. I kept that up, I think, for 4 days or 5. Finally said, Mr. Murray says, come on over. Just like that. Well, when I went in the main office on Curtis Street, I felt as big as any tree in the lot. I wasn't afraid of nobody. I was mad under my skin. And I know not to blow my top because you expose yourself if you talk out of turn. Mr. Murray, a big 6'6" guy, sat across the table from me. And he told his secretary to go out of the room with the girl. In other words, he and I were the only ones in the room. And he wanted to hear my story. And I told him. And I was awful careful not to criticize my superintendent, my foreman, no one in the department. Just so I went to school for them. I did everything in my power to gain advancement. And what's the matter, see? So after I told him all this and I finished up with that very statement, I said, well, I went to school, told what I did, took primary, middle, advancement, chemistry, and everything else to gain advancement. I says, I've done everything in my power. And the only thing against me is my size. And God made me the way I am today. And I shut up. He looked at me a while and got back in his chair. Got up out of the chair, come around, patted me on the back. He says, we got some big little men in this mill. And he says, let's see what we can do. And now when I went out of that office, my blood began to run cold. I thought, boy, I've overstepped the field. I'll get fired. My superintendent will give me the devil. My foreman will raise Kate. I went over works managers, everybody. I went to the top. And I thought, boy, I was in trouble. So the next day, I was naturally a quality checker. And I was go down the mill, and I'd come back and wouldn't tell nobody what I did. Afraid to. In the afternoon, here come Mr. Murray over to our office. Gee, I know what he's coming over for. He comes talking about me, and because I was over there, and I sold him on my idea. And he was over there, I don't know, half hour or so, and I put off going into the office for just as long as I could, and finally I sneaked up, my place was down in the basement, a desk and everything. Went down there to fill out my report. I was expecting when I went in the office, foreman or superintendent, somebody jump on me. They never said one word. They practically called me Mister. From then on, I was it. I got the job that I was shooting at, no arguments. And
but you had been working on
that job. I wanted that top job in the department.
Yeah.
I was what they call a slab mill roller. I was in charge of the whole daggone department. A little guy like me.
What year was that though? Was that?
That was the last 10 years. See, I'd worked there. I'd been there 20 years before I got this job. Before I went to the
I
job.
see. Okay. So yeah.
And
so
then,
that would have been in the mid-50s, or?
Yes, yeah, somewhere around this summer.
Yeah. But then when they were experimenting and learning how to roll steel, that was back in
that was in the in the rolling. I mean, when they first built this mill, that was in that was 32, something like that. That was
so they were
when they built the first continuous mill.
Oh, so it was back in the 20s when they were learning how to roll the steel and everything like that.
No, it was above that. It was in the 30s. Oh, way up there.